The Journey of the River's Song. Chapter 1. A Whisper in the Night. Willow Creek was a quiet village, surrounded by tall mountains and green forests. A wide river ran through it, sparkling in the sunlight and whispering at night. The villagers called it the Singing River because after sunset it made a soft magical sound. Some said it was the wind. Others believed it was the voice of the river itself. For Ava, the river's song was more than a mystery. It was a calling. 12 years old, with curious eyes and a heart full of questions, Ava often sat by the river in the evenings. She would close her eyes and listen to its song, imagining it was trying to tell her a story. Ava, her grandmother called from the porch. "Don't stay out too late." "I'm coming, Grandma," Ava replied, though she didn't move. Instead, she leaned closer to the water, letting its coolness run over her fingers. Tonight, the river's song sounded different, louder, stronger, and almost like it was calling her name. "What are you doing out here so late?" a voice asked. Ava turned to see Eli, her quiet friend from the village, standing a few feet away. He was holding a notebook and a pencil. "Listening," Ava said, brushing her hair out of her face. "Listening to what?" "The river," Ava replied. She pointed to the water. "Don't you hear it? It's singing." Eli tilted his head, his messy hair falling over his eyes. He listened carefully. "It sounds like water to me." Ava shook her head. "It's more than that. My grandmother says the river knows secrets. If you follow it to the source, you'll find something amazing." Eli's eyes widened. "The source? You mean where the river starts?" "Yes," Ava said. "I want to find it." "You'd have to go through the forest," Eli said, looking at his notebook. "And the mountains." He showed her a sketch of the village in the river. "It's a long way, maybe dangerous." "I'm not afraid," Ava said with a grin. Eli hesitated. "If you're serious, you'll need a map. I can help with that." Ava smiled. "Thank you, Eli. Let's start tomorrow." Chapter 2. The First Steps. The next morning, Ava packed a small bag with some bread, a water bottle, and her grandmother's old compass. As she tied her shoes, her grandmother walked into the room. "What are you up to, little one?" Grandma Lena asked. "I'm going to follow the river," Ava said confidently. "I want to find out why it sings." Grandma Lena paused, her eyes softening. She reached for a small red scarf on the table and handed it to Ava. "Take this. It was your mother's." Ava's hands trembled as she took the scarf. Her mother had passed away when Ava was a baby, but her grandmother often spoke about her adventurous spirit. "She loved the river too," Grandma Lena said. "She believed its song was a reminder to never stop exploring." Ava tied the scarf around her neck, feeling braver than ever. "Thank you, Grandma. I'll be careful." Outside, Eli was waiting with his notebook and a small backpack. "I brought my map," he said, showing Ava a detailed drawing of the village and the river's path. "I think we should follow the river east and through the forest." Ava nodded. "Let's go." The two friends set off, the morning sun warming their faces. The river sparkled beside them, its song growing louder as they walked. Chapter 3. Into the forest. By midday, Ava and Eli had reached the edge of the forest. The trees stood tall and close together, their branches weaving a green canopy overhead. The river flowed quietly beside them, guiding their path. "Do you think anyone else has followed the river?" Eli asked. "Maybe," Ava said, "but Grandma says no one knows where it starts. It's a mystery." They walked deeper into the forest, the sunlight dimming as the trees grew thicker. The air was cooler here, and the sound of birds filled the silence. "Look," Eli said, pointing to a tree. "Someone carved something here." Ava stepped closer. On the tree trunk were the words, "Keep listening." "What does it mean?" Eli asked. "I don't know," Ava said, tracing the words with her fingers. "But it feels important." They continued walking, keeping close to the river. The path grew rougher, with roots and rocks making it harder to move quickly. "Do you hear that?" Ava asked suddenly. Eli stopped and listened. It was a faint sound, like humming. It wasn't the river's song. It was something else. "It's coming from over there," Ava said, pointing to a cluster of bushes. They pushed through the bushes and found a small clearing. In the center was a glowing stone, smooth and round, sitting on a patch of moss. "What is it?" Eli whispered. Ava picked up the stone, and the humming stopped. She held it up, and sunlight reflected off its surface. "I think it's a sign," Ava said. "We're on the right path." Chapter 4. Riddles of the River Spirit. As they continued their journey, Ava and Eli noticed the river's song growing louder. It sounded almost like a melody now, with soft repeating notes. They reached a bend in the river where the water formed a small pool. Mist rose from the surface and a voice echoed through the air. "Who dares to follow the song of the river?" Ava and Eli froze. A shimmering figure appeared above the water. A woman made of light and water, her hair flowing like waves. "I am the river spirit," she said, her voice calm but powerful. "Why have you come?" "We want to find the source of the river," Ava said, stepping forward. The spirit tilted her head. "The source is not for the faint of heart. To find it, you must prove yourselves." "How?" Eli asked nervously. "By solving my riddles," the spirit replied. "3 riddles. If you answer them correctly, I will guide you. If not, you must turn back." Ava nodded. "We're ready." The spirit smiled and spoke the first riddle. "I'm not alive, but I grow. I don't have lungs, but I need air. What am I?" Ava and Eli exchanged glances. "A fire," Ava said confidently. The spirit nodded. "You are wise? Here is your second riddle." Chapter 5. The second riddle. The river spirit shimmered in the sunlight, her flowing form rippling like water. Ava and Eli stood side by side, waiting for the next riddle. The spirit's voice was soft yet commanding. "Here is your second riddle. The more you take, the more you leave behind. What am I?" Eli furrowed his brow, tapping his pencil against his notebook. "The more you take, the more you leave behind," he muttered. What could that mean? Ava closed her eyes, thinking deeply. The river bubbled softly beside them, as if encouraging her to focus. Then a memory came to her, a time when she and Eli had walked through the mud after a rainstorm. Footsteps, Ava said suddenly, her voice clear. The spirit's watery eyes sparkled. "You are correct," she said, with a small smile. "You are one step closer to the truth of the river." Eli let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "That was a tricky one," he said, grinning at Ava. The river spirit waved her hand, and the mist around the pool began to shift. "Follow the river," she said. "The next challenge awaits you where the water bends. But be careful. The river tests those who seek its secrets." Before Ava and Eli could ask any questions, the spirit vanished, leaving only the sound of the river's song behind. Chapter 6. The River Bend. The two friends continued their journey, the path becoming more rugged as they went. Rocks jutted out of the ground, and the river grew faster, rushing over sharp stones. "Do you think the river spirit is testing us?" Eli asked, carefully stepping over a large root. Ava nodded. "I think so. The riddles are only part of it. She wants to see if we're strong enough to keep going." As they walked, the sound of the river grew louder. Soon they reached a sharp bend where the water churned violently. The river banks were steep and slippery, and a narrow log bridge stretched across the roaring current. "We have to cross that?" Eli said, his face pale. Ava stepped closer to the bridge, testing it with her foot. The log wobbled slightly, but held firm. "It's the only way forward," she said. "We'll go one at a time." Eli hesitated. "What if it breaks?" "It won't," Ava said, trying to sound confident. "Just go slow." She went first, her arms stretched out for balance. The log was damp, and the rushing water below made her stomach churn. She moved carefully, step by step, until she reached the other side. "See?" she called. "It's fine. Your turn." Eli gulped and stepped onto the log. His knees wobbled as he moved forward, clutching his notebook tightly in one hand. Halfway across, a gust of wind blew through the trees, and the log shifted beneath him. "Eli!" Ava shouted. "I'm okay," he said, gripping the log with both hands. Slowly, he pushed himself back up and continued, his face tense with concentration. When he finally reached the other side, Ava grabbed his arm and pulled him to safety. "That was too close," he said, breathing heavily. "But you made it," Ava said with a grin. "You're braver than you think." Eli smiled weakly. "Let's hope the next challenge doesn't involve heights." Chapter 7. The Storm. As the afternoon passed, dark clouds began to gather overhead. The wind picked up, rustling the trees and sending leaves scattering across the ground. "We should find shelter," Eli said, looking nervously at the sky. Ava glanced around. The forest was thick, but there was no sign of a cave or clearing. The river, now calmer after the bend, wound quietly beside them. "We'll follow the river a little farther," Ava said. "There might be a safe place ahead." They walked quickly, the first drops of rain falling on their heads. Within minutes, the rain turned into a downpour, soaking their clothes and making the path slippery. There, Ava shouted, pointing to a cluster of large rocks near the riverbank. The rocks formed a small overhang, just big enough for them to crouch under. They scrambled beneath it, huddling together as thunder rumbled overhead. "This is the worst," Eli muttered, wringing out his notebook. Ava laughed. "At least we're not stuck in the open." The rain continued to pour, but Ava noticed something strange. The river's song, usually soft and melodic, was growing louder. It sounded almost like a voice calling out to them. "Do you hear that?" she asked. Eli tilted his head. "It's the river again. Why is it so loud?" Ava crawled to the edge of the overhang, peering out at the water. In the middle of the river, a swirling mist began to rise. Slowly, it took the shape of the river spirit. "You have done well to come this far," the spirit said, her voice clear even over the sound of the storm. "We're not turning back now," Ava said, standing up despite the rain. The spirit's eyes glimmered. "Then answer my third riddle. I speak without a mouth. I hear without ears. I have no body, but I come alive with wind. What am I?" Ava and Eli exchanged a glance. "It sounds like something that moves," Eli said, pulling out his soggy notebook. "And something that can be heard," Ava added. She thought about the river's song, the wind, and the way sound carried through the air. Suddenly, it clicked. "An echo," Ava said. The river spirit's smile widened. "You are wise and brave," she said. "Your journey continues, but beware. The greatest test is yet to come." Before Ava could ask what she meant, the spirit vanished, and the rain began to ease. Eli groaned, stretching his legs. "I don't think I can handle another test," he said. "You'll be fine," Ava said, helping him to his feet. "Come on, the river's waiting." Chapter 8. The Hidden Path. The storm left the forest, damp and quiet. Ava and Eli followed the river, their clothes still wet but their spirits high after solving the third riddle. The path grew narrower, the trees thicker. The river disappeared into a rocky canyon, and the friends had to climb over boulders to keep up. "This is harder than I thought," Eli said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Don't give up now," Ava said, offering him a hand. As they climbed, they noticed strange symbols carved into the rocks. They looked like swirling patterns, almost like waves. "What do you think these mean?" Eli asked. "I'm not sure," Ava said, tracing one of the symbols with her finger. "But I think we're getting closer to the source." The river's song was louder than ever, its melody filling the air. Ava felt a sense of excitement and nervousness. Whatever lay ahead, she knew it would change everything. Chapter 9. The Stranger by the River. The forest opened up to a rocky clearing where the river slowed, forming a wide, calm pool. The sunlight sparkled on the surface, and Ava paused to take in the beauty. "This place feels different," Eli said, his voice low. Ava nodded. "It's peaceful, but there's something strange about it." As they walked closer to the pool, they spotted a figure sitting on a rock near the water. He was a tall man with a weathered face, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a leather jacket. A large backpack sat next to him, and a long walking stick rested by his side. The man looked up and smiled when he saw them. "Well, what do we have here?" he said in a friendly tone. Ava exchanged a glance with Eli, her hand instinctively moving to the glowing stone in her pocket. "Hello," she said cautiously. "You kids lost?" the man asked, standing up and dusting off his pants. "No," Ava replied. "We're following the river?" The man raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. Not many people come this far. Name's Marcus, by the way." Ava hesitated, then said, "I'm Ava, and this is Eli." "Well, Ava and Eli," Marcus said, leaning on his walking stick. "You must be pretty brave to wander through these parts. The forest isn't exactly friendly to travelers." "We can handle ourselves," Ava said firmly. Marcus chuckled. "I like your spirit." He tilted his head, studying them. "Say, have you heard the river song?" Eli's eyes widened, and Ava stiffened. "Why do you ask?" she said. Marcus smiled slyly. "Oh, I've been following this river for a long time. They say its song leads to great treasure, something ancient and powerful. I've spent years searching for it, but no luck so far." Ava's grip tightened around the glowing stone in her pocket. She didn't trust Marcus, but she didn't want to reveal too much. "We're just exploring," she said quickly. "Nothing more." "Is that so?" Marcus said, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Well, good luck to you then. The forest can be unpredictable." Ava nodded, and she and Eli quickly walked past him, her heart pounding. Chapter 10. The Stolen Stone. They didn't stop until they were far from the clearing. The river was quieter here, and the trees formed a dense canopy overhead. "Do you think he knows about the stone?" Eli asked, his voice hushed. "I don't know," Ava said, "but we need to be careful." They set up camp near a small stream that branched off from the main river. As the sun set, they sat by the fire, eating the last of their bread. "We're getting close," Ava said, gazing into the flames. "I can feel it." Eli nodded but didn't speak. The events of the day had left him uneasy that night. Ava dreamed of the river spirit. She saw the glowing stone shining brightly in her hands, but shadows loomed around her, reaching for it. When she woke up, the sky was still dark and the fire had burned out. She sat up, her heart racing. Something didn't feel right. "Eli," she whispered, but there was no answer. She looked around and froze. Their backpacks were gone. Panic surged through her, and she scrambled to her feet. "Eli!" "I'm here," Eli called, stumbling out of the bushes. "He took them." "Who?" Ava asked. "Marcus," Eli said, breathless. "I woke up and saw him taking our stuff. I tried to stop him, but he pushed me down and ran off." Ava's hand went to her pocket, but it was empty. The glowing stone was gone. Chapter 11. The Chase. "We have to get it back," Ava said, determination flaring in her eyes. "But how?" Eli asked. "He could be anywhere by now." Ava looked at the ground and spotted a trail of footprints leading away from the camp. "We follow him," she said. They hurried after the footprints, the early morning light guiding their way. The trail led them deeper into the forest, where the trees grew thicker and the air felt heavy. Finally, they spotted Marcus up ahead, sitting on a rock with their backpacks at his feet. He was holding the glowing stone, turning it over in his hands. "It's just a rock," Marcus muttered to himself, frowning. "Why does it glow?" Ava stepped forward, her voice firm. "Give it back." Marcus jumped, startled, but his expression quickly turned smug. "Well, if it isn't my little friends. Come to take your treasure, have you?" "It's not treasure," Ava said. "It doesn't belong to you." Marcus laughed. "If it doesn't belong to anyone, then it's fair game. Finders, keepers." Eli stepped forward, his fist clenched. "We solved the riddles to earn that stone. It's not yours." "Riddles, huh?" Marcus said, raising an eyebrow. "Sounds like you kids are in over your heads. Why don't you run along and let the grown-ups handle this?" Ava glared at him. "We're not leaving without it." Marcus smirked. "Suit yourself." He stuffed the stone into his bag and began walking away. Ava's mind raced. They couldn't fight him. He was bigger and stronger, but they couldn't let him take the stone either. "Wait," she called. Marcus stopped, turning back with a curious look. "You said you've been looking for the river's treasure, right?" Ava said, her voice steady. Marcus nodded. "Then you should know the stone isn't the treasure," Ava lied. "It's only part of the key. Without us, you'll never find what you're looking for." Marcus hesitated, his eyes narrowing. "What kind of key?" Ava took a step forward. "The stone works with something at the river's source. If you try to go alone, it won't work, but if you help us, we'll share what we find." Eli shot Ava a nervous glance, but stayed quiet. Marcus considered her words for a moment, then sighed. "Fine. But if you're lying to me..." He let the threat hang in the air. "We're not," Ava said confidently.